That's a pretty good-looking building, isn't it? Know what it is? It's the Internal Revenue Service headquarters here in Oakland, California. Lurking inside there are IRS auditors who want to know if you made any mistakes on your 1040. What are you going to do about it? Use income tax preparation software. You know, your PC or Macintosh can be a tremendous help in doing your taxes and making sure you get those numbers right. Today we'll show you how to make tax day a breeze as we look at income tax software on this edition of the Computer Chronicles.
Computer Chronicles is brought to you in part by Intel, microprocessor technology for the software of today and tomorrow. Intel, the computer inside. Additional funding is provided by the Software Publishers Association, providers of educational materials to help manage software. Don't copy that floppy. And by Hewlett-Packard, Personal Computer Division.
Welcome to the Computer Chronicles. I'm Stuart Chaffee, and with me today is Peter DeManion of Intuit. Peter, we're talking about tax software today, and you guys at Intuit have Quicken. And we all know it doesn't matter how good your tax software is, unless you've kept good records during the course of the year, it's still a nightmare. How does something like Quicken help me do that and get ready for tax time?
Sure. Quicken is easy because it looks just like your checkbook does at home. Let's say you're writing a check for $50 to Special Olympics, and then it's tax time, and you want a list of all of your tax contributions.
So I code the donations during the course of the year, and boom, there they are when I need them.
Exactly. Very handy. Also, we've got graphs, and these graphs allow you to see just how much you've been spending on taxes throughout the year.
Okay.
Another nice feature is the Quicken Tax Estimator, and what's great about this is that halfway through the year, you want to know, am I going to have a big tax bill? You can come in and avoid a nasty surprise by figuring out, should I be paying quarterly estimated payments? So those are features all within the Quicken CD-ROM Deluxe Edition.
All right, and you can import stuff then into the tax programs from the
That's
state.
right. We do the exact reports that you need for TurboTax for Windows.
Why do I need Quicken on a CD-ROM? What are you using with all that, doing with all that space?
We're making use of CD-ROM to show videos that allow you to learn about how stocks and bonds work, for example.
So just general financial tutorial stuff?
Exactly.
Give me an example.
All you got to do is point and click, and you learn how the over-the-counter market works.
Okay, should we give a listen?
Exactly.
As famous as the New York Stock Exchange
All right, pretty
may
wild.
be.
All right, thank you, Peter.
Sure.
All right, today we will show you the 4 best tax preparation programs for your computer. But remember, those guys at the IRS are also using computers to do their jobs better. So we're going to begin with a visit inside that Internal Revenue Service building we just saw before to find out how the feds are using computers to process your tax returns.
The IRS has a goal of modernizing its operations by the turn of the century. Paper returns will eventually be optically scanned for disk storage and fast transfer of information. And there will be an increased effort to encourage people to file their returns electronically.
Electronic filing is an extremely accurate way to file your tax return. Paper returns have an error rate of 15 to 18%, and electronic filed returns have an error rate of less than 3%. And when there is a mistake or an error, then that causes delays.
If you do your own tax return, you must take your computer disk or the paper form to an IRS-approved tax preparer for the electronic transfer. If you use the 1040EZ, you may be eligible to file your return over the telephone.
Welcome to the Internal Revenue Service telefile system.
Telefiling is one other means of making it simpler for the taxpayer to file, getting the information to us electronically so there are fewer manual errors, and eliminating the delays that paper processing take.
All of this is an effort by the IRS to improve accuracy and compliance.
If we make it easier for people to file and easier for them to understand the tax laws, the compliance rate will go up. And also because our computer systems now are very old, it's 1960s technology, and we don't have the information available when taxpayers call in, which discourages taxpayers also. By keeping more information online, taxpayers' requests can be answered with one call, much more of the time.
For the Computer Chronicles, I'm Jonelle Patterson.
There have been lots of mergers in the tax software business over the past few years, so sometimes it's confusing to tell one tax product from another. For example, there are two programs called TaxCut, Andrew Tobias' TaxCut and the Kiplinger TaxCut program. Here to show us how they differ are Chris and Fersha of Mecca Software, and over there Gene Goldenberg of Kiplinger TaxCut Software. All right, let's start off with the Tobias version. And user-friendly, if that term ever applied, it certainly applies to doing your taxes, because those forms and those manuals you have to deal with are not user-friendly. How have you used that inside software to make it easier to deal with all this tax junk?
Well, what we've done is we've added a feature called the Navigator. The Navigator will step you through the process just to make sure it goes very smoothly.
All right, that's this guy we're looking at?
Well, this first step right here of the Navigator is called Welcome, and there's an assistant here who will tell you how to do things.
Welcome to TaxCut.
And he'll sit here and go through the whole software and tell you all about it.
So you really have a kind of tax preparer to help you along.
Exactly, exactly. The next two steps are load last year's data and import. And if you use products like TaxCut last year or Managing Your Money or Quicken, it'll import the data in. Two columns make the process real easy. And the first column is the data from the financial software, and the second column's blank lines, and you just go ahead and adjust it before it gets to your tax return. The next step is the interview step. Now this gray box down here are topics, tax topics. The text above explains that topic. If the text tells you that it applies to you, move to the Q&A button, and it'll go ahead and ask you questions.
And you go through an interview process with the program?
Exactly. Then when you're done with those set of questions, come back to the gray box. If a topic doesn't apply to you, you can skip right over it.
You've got a little icon on the bottom right that looks like we've got video clips in this
That's
thing?
right. This video is a tax video that will essentially help you through the entire process. Here it is right here.
The home office deduction is a very sweet deduction, because you get to deduct things.
So if I click on a topic and want some help, I can actually get Dan up here to actually talk to me about this stuff.
That's exactly right. He'll give
cool.
you a rundown on specific things that are difficult usually to put into words.
How many of those videos do you have in here?
25 to 30 of them.
Okay. All right, what else?
Okay, now what we'll see is that you have several more of these main topics: W-2, self-employment, retirement plans. By clicking on any one of these, you'll get a series of new tax topics to go through. By going through each one or skipping the ones that don't apply and doing the ones that do apply, you'll essentially go through and complete your entire tax return. After it's all done, you'll want to be sure everything's correct. And TaxCut makes sure that everything is correct. A couple of features on Check Tax Return are review your entries. And what happens there is you get all your entries in one place, and you get a chance to go ahead and just review everything without jumping from form to form. Here is your TaxCut auditor. By clicking on this, TaxCut will run a complete audit of the tax return. And it'll recommend deductions you may have missed and just make sure that nothing went wrong. TaxCut will also file your state tax return. And then what you'll want to do is go ahead and file your federal. That's the next step. And there are three ways to file. There's the 1040 PC, traditional paper, and of course electronic filing. TaxCut will show you the pros and cons of each and help you choose the best one.
All right, this is the multimedia version we've been looking at here. You have simpler versions just for Windows, DOS, and Mac.
DOS, and Macintosh, that's correct.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Let's go over here to Gene and see what the Kiplinger version of TaxCut is like and what really is different about this program, Gene.
Well, Stuart, we use the same underlying program as the Mecca TaxCut program, but we have the added dimension of context-sensitive Kiplinger tax advice. And the Kiplinger organization has been giving tax help for over 70 years.
Okay, so instead of just asking questions to Dan or whatever I was doing over there, I actually can ask the Kiplinger organization here for more information. Show me how I do it.
I've got the tax returns for Bill and Hillary Clinton. This is actually their 1992
This is the real tax return?
The real tax returns.
Okay.
And say you're going through the 1040 and you get to their daughter Chelsea. They know that Chelsea's a dependent, but you may not be sure. You have an older child or divorce situation.
So can I take this kid as a dependent?
You click on the Kiplinger icon and the program will tell you all you need to know about who can be taken as a dependent. You'll discover there are several tests and you can just go to any one of these tests. If you're not sure about what the terminology is, you click there. We try to write this in very understandable, down-to-earth English. One reviewer last year called it Golfing Buddy Prose.
Okay.
Let's just go, for example, to the Schedule A for the Clintons, and you're in medical deductions, and the same thing. You call it up, and that gives you information on the medical deductions. You don't have to go from the forms. You can search for anything you're looking for, and the typical Windows help. Say you want information on points on a mortgage. At that point, you go right there, and you can go right to it, and there it is.
And again, this kind of help, this kind of text is not on the Mecca version.
That's
of this.
correct.
Okay.
We also give a lot of help with tax planning, not just filling out the returns. If we go to the hypothetical, which allows you to look at several tax scenarios together.
This is still Bill and Hillary again?
This is still Bill and Hillary. This is what they made last year. Most of it's Hillary's income. Bill only made $38,000 as governor of Arkansas.
Okay, but he got a raise this year, I see.
$200,000 as president. Now, if we go down to the bottom line, excuse me, and there it is, you'll see that they're going to owe a lot more in taxes unless they do something else to change their tax situation. And if you want help with planning, we go to the Kiplinger advice, and you see there's a veritable library of help on planning. Maybe you want to consider income deferral if you can put off income till next year.
All right, so the big difference here is all this Kiplinger stuff. Is it sort of like having the Kiplinger book inside your software
That's
here
correct.
and hypertext and all the rest of that stuff? Now, you don't sell this in normal software stores. How does somebody get Kiplinger's
No,
TaxCut?
we only sell it direct, and for more information on that, you can call 800-235-4060.
All right, a question I have for you is people think sometimes if you use your computer and then you get that audit and you show up with the IRS guy and you say, the computer made the mistake. I mean, does it give you any sort of backup argument there?
Well, actually, the program does give the actual analysis that it uses to reach the various tax conclusions that it does in preparing your return. So that's a feature of the TaxCut program.
But you can't say, you know, my computer went down and that's why I made the mistake there.
No, I don't think the auditor would take that.
Finally, what about printing the actual returns? Do I need a laser printer to use this to print out my returns?
You don't need a laser printer. You can print out your returns on any dot matrix printer and come up with IRS acceptable forms.
Okay, thanks a lot. Now, to do complicated tax returns, you need to know the federal tax laws and regulations, and there are literally millions of pages of tax codes and rulings. Now, one solution to solving that problem is a service called Tax Analyst.
The Big Six accounting and consulting firm Deloitte Touche employs thousands of tax professionals worldwide. For them, staying on top of the constantly changing tax codes, regulations, and court decisions is as easy as turning on a PC. They subscribe to an electronically delivered tax information service called TaxBase from Tax Analysts. TaxBase has 4 separate information databases.
These 4 databases consist of Tax Notes Today, which covers federal tax issues, State Tax Notes covering state issues, and Tax Notes International covering international issues. Each one's updated daily. Then there's a 4th database called the TaxBase edition of Highlights and Documents. It is an electronic reflection of our print daily, and what it allows them to do is have a single source to go in and scan the headlines and top 10 or 12 news stories in the federal, state, and tax area.
TaxBase runs on Lotus Notes, which is available for Windows, OS/2, the Macintosh, and Unix. Deloitte Touche already used Lotus Notes firm-wide, so subscribing to Tax Analyst's online service made sense.
The ideas that we provide to our clients are contained in Lotus Notes and distributed around the firm for professionals to access. And TaxBase was a very interesting service in that it could provide us very timely tax information and distribute it easily around the firm so that a tax professional in Los Angeles can come in, access TaxBase, see the latest breaking insurance news, for example, before a competitor has probably even come in and had their first cup of coffee for the day.
Tax Analyst's information service is also available on Lexis and Dialog and on CD-ROM. For the Computer Chronicles, I'm Jonelle Patterson.
Two popular tax preparation programs are Parsons Personal Tax Edge and TurboTax. Here to show us how they work are Lance Dunn of Parsons Technology, and also with us Guy McNeil of ChipSoft. Lance, let's start with you in Personal Tax Edge and run me through the buttons we have at the top of the program here.
Sure, Stuart. We provide 3 different entry options here. One of them is the organizer option, which provides you the ability to take a stack of paper that you have.
So I have all my receipts and all my forms from the year, and I don't know where to put them.
Right.
And so I go to organizer, and it says, what do you have?
Right.
And it'll figure out where it ought to go.
You have a 1098, select that, enter it.
Okay, so that's the organizer approach. What about now I really know where I want to go, and I say I want to fill out my Schedule X, whatever. I go to Forms?
Right. We provide the Forms entry method, which is the direct vehicle for getting access to the IRS forms, schedules, and worksheets.
Okay, and if I'm not sure what I want to do, I just say, interview me, and we'll figure it out?
Right. The interview is the best approach. The interview will provide you with a series of topics that you can select from, and we also provide a hint for each topic, which defines what's covered by that topic.
Okay, so let's walk through the basics. I mean, I've got my stuff in front of me. I start with my wages. I have my W-2 form, and I say program. What do I do now?
Right, you'd select the wages topic, and then select continue. It'll ask you how many W-2s you have. We'll say that you have 1, and then continue. And And as you see, the W-2 resembles very closely.
So that's like the piece of paper I have in front of me.
Right.
Okay, so let's go fill in so those first two blanks. So,
We'll
okay,
give you
say my wages are 25,000.
Right, and we'll give you 4,250 in withholding.
Okay, let's say that's what, okay. Now, what do I do with this information next?
Well, you'd fill out the rest of the W-2 just like you have it in front of you, and then continue back to the interview list and continue selecting
and it'll just
the
walk me
topics.
through step by step, going through the forms I
Right.
need, et cetera.
Right.
All right, now I see IRS help up there. What is that about?
The IRS help basically gives you context-sensitive IRS instructions for each of the topics, or if you're on the form, we'll give you line-by-line instructions and/or our tax tips, which explain the items in more detail.
What are the tax tips?
You can't get to them from here.
Oh, okay, that's all right. All right, now what about the tax saver element? That's kind of an interesting thing you have in Tax Edge.
Right, the tax savers is an option to review your return, which will basically analyze the data that you have entered and provide you with some tax planning suggestions or tax saving suggestions.
Okay. So this is not generic advice, but this is really looking at the data I entered and saying you, in your situation, ought to think about doing this?
Right. These are very
Give me
specific.
some examples of what the program would tell me to do.
In this case, we're suggesting that an IRA contribution would be beneficial based on the information that you've entered, since you haven't indicated that you're covered by a pension plan.
Okay.
We're also suggesting that since you're making FICA contributions, that you would want to review your records with the Social Security Administration, since you really wouldn't want to wait till you're retired to find out that everything's okay. And finally, evidently this return indicates that there's an overpayment, and we're suggesting that you may want to review your withholding.
Too much is being withheld.
Right.
Pretty good.
Have the money all year long.
All right, one question. I've seen an ad for you guys offering to give away tax software. What's the deal on that?
That's right. As an introduction to tax preparation software, Parsons is giving away a program called TaxMate.
Which is a smaller version of Tax Edge?
Yeah, it principally includes a smaller number of IRS forms.
Okay, so you just call you guys or something
and pay the
get
shipping.
TaxMate for nothing?
Pay the
shipping and handling. All right, let's go over here and take a look at TurboTax from ChipSoft. You have a hard task now. We've already seen 3 programs, Guy. And I want to ask you about TurboTax. So first of all, what level of person ought to use this stuff? Is it for the beginner who doesn't know anything about doing his taxes? Is it for the guy who knows really what to do and what the forms are and so on?
We've designed TurboTax to handle both the user that's very familiar with taxes and understands the forms. They can quickly access forms, enter their information, and they're done. For the user that needs a little help, we've developed our Easy Step system, which we introduced last year.
So at either level, it makes sense to use something
we'll
like this.
handle both kinds of users.
Okay, so this is the baby level. How does that work?
Right. And the first, what we do here is we have 8 pictures here that show the process we're going to go through, and we show you as you go along. The first thing you do is going to pick our form. So we're going to say choose a primary form, and I have my 3 forms. I'm going to pick and if I need help as far as which form to pick, I have it available here. So I'm going to pick here, and the first thing it's going to ask me to do is save. That's one thing we do is force you to save your return to make sure if the power goes out, you don't lose it.
Okay.
So I've saved that return. And now we asked if you want to import information. If you use Quicken and you save your items as tax items,
like we saw before, we just move that data
move that right into
TurboTax,
TurboTax, and it even itemizes it by check number. So if you're ever audited, that's a nice little feature to show the IRS that you've been tracking your information. I'm going to keep going here. We don't have time to do that import. I'm going to get into the interview. And what the interview does is take you through ask you questions and take you through each of the forms. And it only presents the forms that you need. In other words, if you answer no to a particular question, it won't show you that form. You don't need to fill it out, obviously.
So again, I don't have to think too much. It'll just walk me through
It's going to take me right through. And let's go and actually enter something here. I'm going to select taxpayer info. And the first question here is, who am I preparing the return for? I'll say myself and my spouse. And so I'll just enter my name here. And you notice down below here, it actually entered my name.
It actually put it in the form.
So as you proceed through the questions and enter information, it actually shows the form below, so you understand where you are. You're not entering information into a black box.
Now, what happens? I'm going through here and I'm just not sure what to do. Does this qualify? Does this term apply to me or not? How do I get answers to those questions?
All along, we provide help. And we provide help in several different ways. For instance, up here you notice we have the little Capitol building and it says instructions. That's the actual IRS instructions that come in the mail. We have that online.
The actual booklet text is in here too?
That's correct.
Okay.
And you can't really see it too well on the screen, but this is a green here. If I double click, I get some information as well within the interview if I have some questions about a particular term or topic. And we provide our own help here under the question mark, which is our own interpretations of those IRS instructions in
So you
English.
can read the actual instructions or some guy's rewrite that makes it a little easier to understand?
Right, it's in English. So in this interview, I don't have to go follow this order of questions. I can skip forward. So for instance, if I want to go down and enter my deductions, I can go right to itemized deductions, select itemized deductions. You notice on the bottom here that Schedule A will show up, and I can go through Schedule A. Now I can exit this interview at any time. And that's one thing that we recommend, is that if you are very familiar with the form and you don't want to answer these questions, get out of Easy Step, go right to that form, enter your information, and then if you get to a form where you have a question, go back into the interview and let the interview guide you
so
through
you
that
can pick
form.
your level with TurboTax here. I want to have my handheld, or no, leave me alone, I just want to put the numbers in.
Right, that's great. Some of the other features we have here, we have a file cabinet, which is a way to search for a particular topic. Let's say I've gone through my interview and I find a receipt that I'm just not sure where that belongs. I can select, open up my little file cabinet. Let's say I have, let's just pick a crazy one, fertilizer for a farm. What that will do is take me to the correct form and the correct line item and display the help for that particular topic. So it's a real nice feature to take you where you need to go. We also provide...
How about graphs? I just want to ask you real quick, we just a little time left about what we do with graphs here in TurboTax.
If we do graphs, what we do is we will bring up several different graphs. In this case, I don't have a data file with some information in it, but let's go ahead and let's close this out.
But again, I could chart.
You can chart.
Again, there's no numbers in there,
items,
so we're not seeing much. Real quick question: you have something called the Head Start version. Do you have to like buy it once and then buy more stuff after you get the latest forms?
No, actually, the way it works is we start offering the Head Start version in October. The IRS has until the 31st of December to finalize forms. And so we release that to allow users to get a head start. They can enter information and then transfer it into the final version. If you buy the Head Start version, we will send you the final version for free in the mail.
Okay, that's our look at income tax software. Stay tuned now for this week's computer news on Random Access.
In the Random Access file this week, Microsoft's newest version of Excel, version 5.0, has begun shipping. The first customers to receive the upgrade are users of Microsoft Office 4.0, which contains the Excel spreadsheet. Excel 5 includes the most up-to-date set of OLED dynamic link libraries and the move from Excel's XLM macro language to Visual Basic for applications. Compton's new media will use IBM's speech recognition technology in its new interactive encyclopedia and the Sporting News Football Guide. Compton says this will allow you to speak continuously rather than pausing between words when talking to your computer. Sony Electronic Publishing has released the first game title in its new interactive cinema category. Microcosm lets players combine realistic game action with film quality graphics, special visual effects, and CD quality sound. Microcosm is available on CD-ROM for the PC and the Sega CD game player and will be released soon for the 3DO interactive multiplayer. Eidolon Incorporated is working on development of a new multimedia title called Millennium Auction that it is referring to as Intelitainment. Millennium Auction is designed to appeal to grown-up game players with emphasis on visually stimulating mind play as opposed to the action-driven hand play of traditional electronic games. Look for Millennium Auction to be released this spring for under $100. Tandy Corporation says it will open 24 new computer superstores and 6 consumer electronics stores this year. Tandy expects to hire 3,600 new employees to staff its new locations. IBM, on the other hand, is continuing its efforts to cut back on overhead and operating costs. Big Blue is even considering moving out of its corporate headquarters building in Armonk, New York. And Apple Computer has received a complaint from Carl Sagan after reports that Apple had codenamed one of its new PowerPC models after the famed astronomer. After receiving the complaint, Apple reportedly changed the code name for its new model from Carl Sagan Astronomer to Butthead Astronomer, or BHA for short. The BHA is one of 3 new Apple models that will run on the PowerPC microprocessor. That's it for this week's Computer Chronicles. I'm Janelle Stelson.